Welcome to the Eat This Book podcast. I'm Michael Whitworth. Each day we take a small piece of scripture and we sit with it. Not a quick snack that disappears before lunch, not a chore you check off of a list, but rather a meal meant to be savored. So pull up a chair. Let's eat. Well, there's no doubt about it. Genesis chapter 6 verses 5 through 8 might be one of the saddest passages in the Bible. We've seen sin enter the world. We've watched it spread from the fruit to the murder to Lamech's boast to the Nephilim to a world without limits. But nothing prepares us for these verses, because here, for the first time, we see what sin does to God. Verse 5, "The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." Read that slowly. Every intention, only evil, continually. This isn't occasional stumbling. This isn't partial corruption. This is total. The human heart has become a factory of wickedness, producing nothing but evil all the time. The thoughts, the intentions, the deep places where decisions are made, all of it polluted, all of it dark. God looks at humanity, and this is what he sees. And then verse 6, "And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart." Stop there. God regretted. God was grieved to his heart. What do we do with that? This verse has troubled theologians for centuries. Doesn't God know everything? Didn't he see this coming? How can an omniscient God regret something? How can an unchanging God be grieved? Some people try to soften it. They say it's anthropomorphism, the human language applied to God to help us understand, but not literally true. God doesn't really feel grief. He doesn't really regret. Those are human emotions, and God is above all that. But I'm not sure the text lets us off that easily. The Hebrew word for regretted is nacham. It means to be sorry, to be moved to pity, to grieve. It's the same word used when God relents from judgment elsewhere in Scripture, and the word for grieved is atsab, to hurt, to be pained, to be wounded. It's a word of deep emotional anguish. The text isn't trying to protect us from God's feelings, it's trying to show us. Here's what I think is happening. God is not a distant watchmaker who wound up the universe and walked away. He's not an abstract force, indifferent to what happens in his creation. God is personal. God is relational. And because he's relational, he can be hurt. When you love something, you become vulnerable to it. You open yourself to joy, but also to grief. A parent who loves a child can be wounded by that child in ways that a stranger never could. The depth of the pain is proportional to the depth of the love. God made humanity in his image. He breathed his own breath into Adam's nostrils. He walked with them in the garden. He pursued them after they sinned. He clothed them before he sent them out. And now he looks at what they've become, and it breaks his heart. The grief of God is the grief of a lover, the grief of a father, the grief of someone who gave everything and watched it be destroyed. It grieved him to his heart. The Hebrew is more literally, it pained him to his heart. The heart, leb, is the center of a person, the seat of will and emotion and thought. God's pain isn't surface level. It's not a passing disappointment. It goes to the core of who he is. This is not a God who observes sin from a distance and calmly pronounces judgment. This is a God who feels the weight of human wickedness in the deepest part of himself. Your sin doesn't just break God's law, it breaks God's heart. I think we need to sit with that. We often think of sin in legal terms. We broke the rules, we violated the contract, we deserve punishment. And all of that is true, but it's not the whole picture. Sin is also personal. It's relational. When you sin, you're not just breaking a command, you're wounding the one who gave it. You're grieving the heart of the God who made you, who loves you, who breathed life into you. Genesis chapter 6, verse 6 puts a face on divine justice. Before God pronounces judgment, he grieves. Before the flood comes, the heart of God breaks. And yet, here's the tension. God doesn't change. Theologians call this the doctrine of divine immutability. God doesn't shift like shadows. His character is constant. His purposes are sure. So how can he regret? How can he be grieved? I think the answer is that God's grief doesn't mean he made a mistake. It doesn't mean he wishes he'd done something differently. It means he experiences the reality of human sin with genuine sorrow, sorrow that is consistent with his unchanging character. God always knew this would happen. He wasn't surprised. But knowing something is coming doesn't mean you don't grieve when it arrives. A parent can know their child is dying and still weep at the bedside. Foreknowledge doesn't eliminate feeling. God's grief is real, and it doesn't contradict his sovereignty. It reveals his heart. Verse 7, So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. Judgment comes. The flood is announced. But notice how it's framed, for I am sorry that I have made them. This isn't cold, detached justice. This is a grieving God doing something terrible because the alternative, letting wickedness continue unchecked forever, would be worse. The flood is judgment, yes, but it's judgment that comes from a broken heart. And then verse 8, the turn, the breath of hope. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. But in a world where every intention of every heart is only evil continually, one man. In a sea of corruption, one ark. In the midst of divine grief, grace. The word favor is the Hebrew word shin. It's often translated grace. This is the first appearance in Scripture. The first time the word shows up. It's attached to a man standing in the wreckage of a ruined world, finding grace in the eyes of a grieving God. Grace doesn't appear when things are good. Grace appears when everything has fallen apart. Here's what I want you to take from this. God is not indifferent to what happens in his world. He's not a cosmic bureaucrat stamping approvals and denials without feeling. He sees, he knows, and he grieves. Your sin matters to God, not just because it violates his law, but because it wounds his heart. He made you. He loves you. And when you turn away, when you choose evil, when you become part of the world's corruption, it pains him to his core. But the grief of God is not the end of the story, because after the grief comes grace. After the sorrow comes Noah. After the broken heart comes a rescue plan. God grieves, but he doesn't give up. The same God who was sorry he made humanity is the God who saved humanity through a man, an ark, and a flood. The grief led somewhere. The pain produced redemption. And if you're feeling the weight of your own sin today, if you're wondering whether God could ever want you, whether you've gone too far, whether you've grieved him beyond repair, look at Noah. The world was only evil continually, and Noah found grace. If grace could find Noah in that world, it can find you in yours. The Lord saw, the Lord regretted, the Lord grieved. And then, in the eyes of a grieving God, one man found favor. The flood is coming, but so is the ark. If this episode left you hungry for more, I've written a book called The Epic of God, A Guide to Genesis, a full journey through the book we're feasting on together. You can grab it on Amazon or order from starttofinish.org and use the promo code PODCAST to save 25%. Next time on Eat This Book, we're slowing way down for one sentence, just one, because it carries the weight of an entire life. Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. We'll talk about obedience that doesn't make sense yet, faith that works with clear skies overhead, and what it looks like to build something God asked for when no one else understands why. If you've ever struggled to obey before you see the payoff, if you've ever wondered whether faith really can hold up under long, quiet obedience, Genesis 6 has something to say to you. Join me next time as we step into the workshop with Noah and learn what it means to do all that God commanded. Thanks for eating with me. Until next time, may the Word dwell in you richly.